Greetings noisemakers. Today I'm going to give you a quick rundown of some of the cool new devices that are in Ableton Live 10. I'd say that a couple of them especially are really there to speed up your creative workflow. Well, that's been my impression of using them for a little while so far. I'm going to start with showing you one of my favorites, which is called the drum bus. And to demo that, I'm actually going to record some drums, some very simple, not very well recorded drums even, you could say. I'm going to record with an SM57, and it's going to be a single microphone drum recording. So it's going to have a very kind of plain sound, nothing really amazing about it, but I'm going to show you how the drum bus works to make a really killer drum sound out of something pretty basic. Here it is. Let's do some recording. First thing I'm going to do is just clean my drums up a little bit, get them on the grid. So I've got these 3 drum loop ideas now. I've got them into loop clips. They're kind of on the grid. They've still got a bit of a loose human feeling about them. That's cool. I want that. And I'm going to grab these 3 clips. I'm going to put them into the session view, and I'm going to combine them with some other synth clips that I've got going on. So let's have a look at the drum bus. The drum bus is going to turn these clips into something much bigger sounding. You might have noticed so far that the drum sound is pretty thin, and that's because I've just put a dynamic mic. You can see it's positioned here in a kind of single mic drum kit position. It's sort of a little bit in front of the snare drum, a little bit above the kick drum, but we've got a pretty thin sound. I'll play it to you again just in case you hadn't heard it the first time. Especially not much kick drum, that kind of thing. So the drum bus, let's have a look at it. I like to think of this as sort of like a smart device that's listening to your drums as they come in. It's broken up into 3 main sections. The first section here is the input section, or the input gain section, and that's basically an analog modeled circuit by the sound of it that you can drive or overdrive on the way in. And then you have this section here, which I'd call the high to mid section. I think that's what they've called it as well. And the high to mid section is affecting sort of everything from, I guess, the snare drum upwards and your cymbals and most of the other high frequency sounds in your drum sound. And lastly, we have this low frequency section, which is basically working on your kick drums. So I've got my 3 different loops. I'm going to start with the drier sounding sort of hi-hat loop, and we're going to have a look at how we can dial in a pretty cool sound. First thing I'm going to do is turn up the drive. And there's actually this compressor switch here, which is a kind of fixed setting compressor, if you like. It's literally a switch. Kind of cool, very quick and easy. So it's basically applying some, I guess you'd call it drum safe compression, which is preserving most of the transients automatically. So we just hit this button and you'll hear we suddenly get a lot more gain. And then the drive has 3 different models, soft, medium, and hard. Let's have a listen. Hard versus soft. Medium. But I'm going to keep it not too overdriven because we can actually get a lot more sound out of the next section as well. Next we have this mid to high section, and we've got this crunch value here. This can range from kind of quite subtle dampened sounds through to like really crunchy kind of big beat sounds, which is sort of what we're starting to get here. There's this damp here. It's like a gentle low pass, not a really steep curve on it. So it allows us to shave off a bit of those high frequencies before they get crunched up, if you like. But basically it takes, you know, a fair bit of brightness or high frequency out of the sound. Then we have this dial. This must be my favorite one, I think. It's like a single dial transient control. It ranges from, if I turn to the right, basically having very extended kind of decay sounds on the drums, to, if I go all the way to the left, having very sharp pointed transients with nice sort of almost gated gaps in between them. Have a listen. It's quite a radical tone shaping dial. Check this out. But what I like about it is like more of a transient shaper in that you have a very kind of, I guess, a compressed sound without losing the transients when you turn it all the way to the right. So we still have that kind of nice front punchy part of the sound, but we've also got a lot of that ringing decay. And this is a pretty, it's not an amazing quality microphone, so we're getting that nice gritty kind of sound out of these long transients here. If we go to the other side, we're getting this really nice dry kind of funk sound almost. Lastly, the boom sound. Let's check this out. So I hope you can hear that I'm sort of dialing in this. It's like an envelope follower that's just tracking the kick drum. And this is where the plugin gets a bit smart, if you like. It seems to be just specifically tracking the low frequency kick drum sounds, which is really cool. It's kind of like the corpus, if you've ever used that to lengthen your kick drum sounds. What's nice about this is you can dial in the frequency, but you can also focus in on a particular note. So we get this nice little display down here that says it's a C1, but a little bit sharp. Plus. See, if I go a little bit under, it'll be a C1 minus. And if I click on this, it basically will quantize that frequency or round that frequency up to an actual C1. That's very useful for tuning your drums or tuning your kick drums especially. And also that frequency can be automated, so you could imagine yourself creating moving bass parts that are following the kick drum, if you like. So let's just dial this in. We've also got a simple decay control, which is pretty cool. This basically changes the length of the boom. Let's have a listen. So let's A-B that sound now. If I turn this off, let's just listen to this pretty thin sound, single mic drum recording. And now with the drum bus. We've definitely got a whole lot more character, a whole lot more punch, a whole lot more presence from the drums. And also, I've been able to tune the bottom end of my kick drum so that it matches the tone of what I'm doing. I've actually got a loop up here. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's this one here. There we go. So this is in C, and now my kick drum's going to be in tune with that. Now in the mix, this is really useful because now I can mess with my transient settings here, for example, and my boom settings to try and dial in that drum sound that's going to blend well with all the other sounds. Have a listen. This might make sense with some higher C sounds. Check this out. So let's try out the drum bus now on a couple of those clips that have longer cymbal sounds in them, the ride cymbals. Have a listen to this. Let's try the other ride sound. Without the drum bus. With the drum bus. So you can hear that I'm able to control the length of the notes with this transient dial. Really cool way to quickly dial in the drum sound. Obviously, this device has been placed on a single channel that has a mix of all the drum sounds in it. So it's processing everything at the same time at the moment. But this drum bus of course, is very useful to place just on individual drum sounds as well to really shape the tonality of that sound. Obviously, if you drive a really high quality drum sound into there as well, it's going to be really fantastic at shaping in a very subtle way those sounds. So a really nice device that's going to, I think, change the way that you think about shaping your drums, especially in a creative way when you're at the beginning of the process and you're just trying to dial in a sound that you want. This is a really quick and easy way to do some pretty fine and some pretty brutal changes to your drum sound. And I think it's going to be really useful. Like a lot of Ableton Live's devices, the drum bus can really come into its own when you use it possibly in a way that it wasn't intended. For example, percussion sounds, all sorts of percussion sounds with transients in them respond really well to the drum bus. I'm going to play this little percussion Kenjira hand drum here and do a bit of body percussion and see what it sounds like through the drum bus. Check this out. Let's try the body percussion first, see what we can do with the drum bus. So it's really fun. Before, after. Let's try it out on the Kenjira. So we go from, this is unprocessed, to processed. You notice that the Kenjira really benefited from turning down the transient value, so the sound got a lot shorter. If it's longer, it kind of gets a bit soupy. Check this out. But the negative value makes it a lot more punchy. It basically cuts out some gaps in between the notes. Hope you've enjoyed this video and got some useful information out of it. Please subscribe to our channel, Noisemaker Academy. Check out our other videos on producing with Ableton Live and sound design. And we'll see you soon. Happy noisemaking.